trademark libel suit. Rav Fischer, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it very much.
Delighted to be here.
Okay. And today we'll be discussing a number of issues as it relates to American Jewry, anti-Semitism, support for Israel, anti-Zionism, etc. Rabbi Fischer, we know that there was an alliance between African Americans and the wider Jewish community during the Civil Rights Movement. Were such movements, such as the Civil Rights Movement, critical for American Jews in that it helped to stem discrimination based on race, similar to discrimination based on religion?
Well, I am politically very conservative, so I'd like your listeners to understand that's where I'm coming from. And therefore, they may be surprised because what I say may sound very liberal. So I'd like them to know, I'd like you to know, I come from it as an extremely politically conservative person. The 1950s and 1960s Black civil rights movement was virtually a mitzvah, and it was imperative that Jews be involved in that. I was too young to be actively involved. I was a boy growing up. It was a time that Blacks in parts of the country were not allowed to use the same bathroom as white people, use the same water fountain as white people, had to sit in the back of a bus. If the bus filled, the Black in the back of the bus had to stand up to make room for a white person. They could not get into hotels or motels, forget about country clubs. There were places they couldn't buy food. They weren't allowed to sit at a counter at certain luncheonettes. Jackie Robinson, the famous baseball player, could not stay at the same hotel as the rest of his team when the Brooklyn Dodgers were traveling. In such a time and such a world, it was obligatory on Jews to be involved in a Black civil rights movement. Had I been older, at that time I would have been, not because I'd be liberal or caught up in the moment. I am conservative and always have been, but it was right, not because of what Jews went through in the Holocaust or what Jews went through for 2,000 years of persecution, but simply because it was right. It takes away from our own humanity, and as Jews, our belief that people are created by God in his image, that we would sit by and watch while other human beings are treated that way. So I believe it was right for Jews to be involved in that movement. I would have been involved in the movement. And again, even now in the year 5784 or 2024, looking back and looking at the problems we now have with the Black American community, I'd still say it was right. It would be right. And absolutely.
Okay. Obviously, you had just mentioned that your political orientation you've described as conservative. A broad question. Should American Jews be involved in partisan politics in the United States, or should the Jewish community focus on specific issues such as freedom of religion, issues that are specifically Jewish issues?
I believe in the best of all worlds. Half of American Jews should be Democrat liberals, and half of American Jews should be Republican conservatives, so that each side should feel, number one, they should not feel to heck with the Jews because they're all lined up on the other side. They should feel that they need whatever they're getting from Jews, and that Jews are in play, and that they could lose Jews if they go the wrong way. If it were half and half, then Democrats would be vying for the half they don't have and would not take their half for granted. And same with the Republicans. And so I have no problem with Jews on one side of the aisle worrying about climate, if that's their thing, or all the other left-wing causes, and Jews on the right side being concerned with right-wing causes, I think it's good for Jews to be involved. And in fact, I think it's better, to the degree that we care about what non-Jews think. It should not be that, oh, those Jews, all they care about is themselves and Israel. They should know that we are part of the general community. Look, we should all be in Israel. We should all be on Aliyah. That's the land God gave us. That's where I would be, not in America, except for the fact that, and that was my plan, to make Aliyah with my wife. Then a few years ago, my wife died of cancer. Her name was Ellen, Zichrona Livracha, blessed memory, wonderful, wonderful, tzaddikus, righteous woman. She died of a cancer. And then I contracted interstitial lung disease, which ultimately led to a lung transplant. And at the present time, I cannot easily do traveling and relocate to Israel. All my doctors who are monitoring my post-transplant situation are here in America. But all Jews belong in Israel. To the degree that we live outside of Israel, we should be part of the greater society. Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, said we should pray for the well-being of our country, and we should care about our country, its economy. It affects all of us. Climate change is not my issue, but for those that believe it's an important issue, they should go ahead and hug their trees, and whatever their cause might be, and immigration at the southern border of the United States and the economy, Jews should be involved in everything.
And when you look at the climate today, not climate change, but the climate today, who are the strong allies, if that's the right word, of American Jewry as it relates to specifically Jewish issues and issues regarding Israel? Is it just the evangelicals? We spoke obviously at the beginning about the movement, the African American civil rights movement, and there was a tremendous alliance there. Have we given up on all those previous alliances, and now it's just the evangelicals, or are there a lot more allies out there than it appears?
I am an Orthodox Jew. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, but I'm an Orthodox Jew, and therefore I believe that everything that happens is directed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God Almighty. And I believe he's the ally that I have, and we have to look to. And as far as human beings and secular allies, I'm a big believer that you look at a time and you look at that moment, who are your allies today? I believe it is very dangerous, not only foolish, but dangerous for a Jew to think that because he has an ally one day, that is always his ally. Jews have to be very flexible because anti-Semitism changes. And I heard Douglas Murray quoting Rav Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichron Livracha, as having said that anti-Semitism is sort of like a disease that constantly evolves, like an evolving bacterium or virus transforms in other forms, takes other forms. And one generation, anti-Semitism focuses on religion. Another generation, anti-Semitism focuses on economics. Another generation, it focuses on the land of Israel, Zionism. And with all of that as background, there was a time in the United States between 1881, 1920, 1930, that the Democrats and the liberals were our friends, and the Republicans were our enemies. When Jews immigrated to the United States from 1881 to 1914 from Eastern Europe, places like Russia, Poland, Hungary, Romania, when they came to the United States, the Democrats welcomed them with open arms, gave them money to vote, and the Republicans kept Jews out of the country clubs and the hotels, and Jews could not get positions. Jewish graduates of law school could not get positions in law firms, and Jewish graduates from medical school could not get admitted into hospital work. and the Republicans were the anti-Semites, low-key anti-Semites, what is referred to as gentlemen agreements. And the Democrats warmly welcomed us. And so that was the place to go. Times have changed. Today, Republicans, conservatives are the great, great friends of Jews. And Democrats mostly are our enemies at worst, and at best, they're neutral. And so that's today. What will be in 20 years or 20 minutes? I don't know. But right now, the time of your question, it's just a very easy question. It's got beyond evangelicals. Republicans are our friends. Republicans support Israel. Republicans support a strong Israel. They supported, not only talked the talk, but walked the walk, moved the embassy, the American embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Many of them recognize Jewish rights throughout Judea, Samaria, Yehuda, Shomron, and no longer regard any kind of notion of giving Arabs their own country in Yehuda, Shomron, Judea, Samaria. Our best friends are Republicans, a lot of them. And with very few exceptions, Democrats are quite our enemies right now. Some are very strong enemies, some are moderate enemies, and the best of them are neutral. And so today it goes beyond evangelicals. But in terms of Christianity, again, the more conservative Christian denominations are closer. The more liberal Christian denominations are more problematic.
Okay. We had a guest a while back who was one of the founders of the Holocaust Museum in Washington and a leading scholar on Holocaust studies. And today we see this tremendous, alarming rise in anti-Semitism. I believe it was out in California yesterday where a synagogue was blocked by protesters, obviously the college campuses. This guest said that sometimes when he speaks about Holocaust education and goes into the details of how Nazi Germany step by step did what they did, he sometimes gets the feeling that he might be teaching a new generation not about Holocaust education, but how to perpetuate a Holocaust. And he says it's just sometimes he just thinks maybe this is all off. Does strong public Jewish advocacy help stem anti-Semitism? We have so many Jewish organizations in America that are devoted to that. Or does it somehow, ironically, engender anti-Semitism?
For 30 years, I have been writing and preaching against Holocaust education and against Holocaust museums, not only today or yesterday, but I can show you articles from 30 years ago. I have been against Holocaust museums for a number of reasons. Number one, Jewish organizations are spending tens of millions of dollars on Holocaust museums. That money should have gone and should go to Torah education, Jewish education, to yeshivas, to educate Jewish kids in Judaism, to Orthodox and such summer programs for summer camps, to programs like Birthright. I am absolutely and always have been against Holocaust museums and Holocaust education. That's number one. Number two, I believe that Holocaust education at its best, at its very best, gets us a little bit of sympathy for a little bit of time. I don't believe in sympathy. I don't believe the world works off sympathy. That's one of the great problems in the Black American Jewish community. They rely on sympathy. People don't care. People have their own problems. People have their own problems. They listen to Blacks talk about slavery, and they say it really is terrible, but that was 150 years ago. Now I have my problems. And non-Jews hear about the Holocaust and say, that really is quite horrible, but that was 80 years ago. Now I have my problems. And particularly blacks don't want to hear about Holocaust because they had slavery. And you know what? They're kind of right. They're kind of right. To make them sit through Holocaust education, they got their own problems. Just like a lot of Jews don't want to sit through slavery education. So that's the second problem with Holocaust education. It teaches Jews to be whiners and cry and complain and ask for sympathy. That's not how the world works. The world works based on strength. The state of Israel came into being not because of the Holocaust, but because the Irgun and the Lehi blew the British out of the land of Israel. Had it not been for the Irgun and Lehi, we would still be under the British rule. Nobody, don't think for a moment that we got what we got because of the Holocaust. Third, the Holocaust teaches kids, they look at these videos and they see these pictures and they see that Jews really can be beaten up and Jews really can be persecuted. Jews are not like everyone else. They don't fight back. I wrote an article about a year ago when the anti-Semitism just started in the campuses. And I wrote an article, I published an article urging Jews to stand up. There are more of you, I wrote, at each of these colleges than the anti-Semites. Stand up. And they don't, they whine. They whine and they fetch. Look, they're anti-Semites. Look what they're saying from the river to the sea, Palestine. Who cares what they're saying? Beat them up. Go out and you say from the river to the sea, all of Israel will be free. And let them say Palestine will be free. And you come back from the river to the sea, all of Israel will be free. And the Arabs will be gone from Judea Samaria soon enough. Instead, the Jews go hiding. What ends up happening is from all this Holocaust education, Jews have been taught basically to defer and to hide and whine and cry. Jews should fight. That's how Israel came into being. And that's how Israel will continue to come into being, besides the guidance, the divine protection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God. When every single time that the Hamas attacked from Gaza and Israel starts whining, look what they did, look what they did. The only way to stop it is what's happening now. You have to wipe out Gaza. And if the world doesn't like it and says it's a genocide and it's this, we have to try to explain it's not genocide, and we have to explain the difference, and we have to explain why Israel, but in the end, doesn't matter what they say. Strong Jews who have faith in God, because you got to have faith in God, it's not kochi va'otzem yadi, it's not my strength does it, it's that God walks with us into battle to destroy our enemies, and Jews have to fight. So on your question about Holocaust education and all of that, Jews need to be strong, fearless, and fight.
And how do you educate a generation of American Jews to that point of view? I mean, it's again, American Jews, liberals, Democrats, by and large. How do you get that message out?
It takes time because of the quirky nature of democratic politics. This is a quirky thing. I've made this point, and when people hear it, they say, aha, now I get it. Why are Jews in America so consistently Democrat, even though they're voting against self-interest? And they should be voting Republican by now, until God forbid someday when Republicans change and Democrats change. Why do Jews vote against interest? And I explain it. In 1860, it's 150 years ago, Democrats were the party, the racist party in the South, the Ku Klux Klan and the Knights of the White Camellia and other pro-slavery party. And the Deep South voted Democrat. Lincoln was the Republican. They hated him. They went to war against him. And they kept voting Democrat. Over the course of time, the Democrats went from one side of the aisle. It's a fascinating story we don't have time for now. Somehow there was like a switch where Democrats moved from a kind of right to left and Republicans moved from left to right. Not exactly. It's more complicated, gets into economic theory and all kinds of other stuff. But Lamaisa, basically, the Democrats moved left and Republicans moved right. And since the Deep South in America is right-wing, forget about slavery. They are right-wing, conservative, religious, right-wing religious, Baptists, a whole bunch of right-wing things, low taxes, strong border. It would make sense that the South would have been voting Republican. And yet I've shown with actual data and names that the most Deep South states, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, continued voting exclusively Democrat. All their United States senators and congressional representatives and their governors all were Democrat, even into the 1960s, until 1980 for 120 years, till Reagan ran against Carter. For 120 years, long after the parties changed, Republicans inconceivably voted against interest and stood Democrat. And what that showed me, and the same thing happened with Sephardim in Israel. They started off voting labor. In many cases, certain people voted labor because they felt labor had brought them in, Operation Magic Carpet and things like that. And it took a while till the Begin Revolution of 1977 for them to turn to Likud. What happens is that people get tied into a political party and then they stay like barnacles. They stick to that party because they identify with the party. They become active in the party. Their children start getting summer jobs, picking up garbage in the park from that party. The local party representative, congressman or whatever, comes to their shul for the annual banquet and honors them. And the rabbi knows them and the president of the board of directors knows them. And B'nai B'rith, the American Jewish Committee, they get to know all the people on that political party. And then when the parties turn around and suddenly that party is your enemy and the other party is your friend, you're so committed to the party that turned around against you because you know all of them that you can't give it up. I know rabbis who used to brag. I know a rabbi was bragging how Hillary Clinton came to his house on a Friday night for Shabbos dinner. And then when there was an election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and we knew Donald Trump would be better for Israel, he couldn't turn on Hillary Clinton. It's like she ate in his house. And he kept as a Democrat till she no longer was a contender. And then he was able to leave and become a Republican. And that's the craziness, not only of Jews, but of American Southerners for 120 years. And by the way, Catholics. People focus on how Jews are liberal. Catholics also vote liberal against conscience, against what they believe. And you even get guys like Biden and Nancy Pelosi are Catholics, and everything they do is against the dogma of the Catholic Church. It makes no sense. And that's how democracy works. And if there were a better system, it would be worth trading it in. But there's no better system.
As a attorney, legal scholar, one who was obviously delved into the legal space in the United States, and putting aside now, every Jew should be in Israel. Do you see the United States historically as a unique diaspora in the story of Jewish history, especially in terms of legal protection? Is it that unique and so special?
I'm also a student of Jewish history. I have a graduate degree in that field. And I've studied European Jewish history and Sephardic North African Jewish history, et cetera, et cetera. And there is no question that other than Babylonia at Talmudic times, maybe Spain during the golden age of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi and Ibn Gabirol and Ibn Ezra. There's just been nothing in history like America. The bracha that blessing that God has brought on American Jewry, it is absolutely incomparable. The rights that Jews have, the opportunities to have yeshivas to learn, to express orthodoxy and Torah values in public, not to have to think twice about it. Sure, there are anti-Semites. There are anti-Semites everywhere, also in Israel. But the idea of what American Jews enjoy, it's unbelievable. The protections, look, America's not perfect. The last year or two have been crazy ever since the war with Gaza. But there always were outbreaks of anti-Semitism. There was the Leo Frank lynching, an outrageous story that people can look up. We don't have time for it here. But Leo, F-R-A-N-K, the Leo Frank lynching. It's an extraordinary story of anti-Semitism in Georgia. Or there was the crazy incident in 1922, upstate New York.
Messina, New York.
Exactly. Messina, New York. There was a Rabbi Brennglass, and a girl went missing. It was right before Rosh Hashanah, a non-Jewish girl. And a rumor spread that the Jews had the holiest day, and they killed this girl for her blood. Even though the blood libel usually is tied in with Passover, 6 months later, I don't want to even go into that now, but Jews had to go in hiding, and the police had to hold the rabbi in the police precinct, not that he was arrested on suspicion, but for his own protection of his life. So there have been crazy instances and outbreaks of anti-Semitism, and like during the era when the Klan, KKK, were hanging blacks, lynching them, there actually were 2 or 3 lynchings of Jews, besides Leo Frank. So there have been instances in the same way there have been lynchings of Jews in Eretz Israel. And this is part of the Jewish experience. We are unique in the world, probably having in our code of law, not only laws of honesty and paying our bills and not stealing and not cheating and not killing, not murdering. We also have a law of redeeming our captives. People would take us captive for money. Besides from Hamas, just in the Middle Ages, governments, official governments would take Jews captive in order to just hold the community hostage. You want your rabbi back? Here's what it costs you. So we've been through crazy times. There's never been a country like America. The Torah learning, a place where Rav Moshe Feinstein and a Lakewood yeshiva and all the yeshivas that exist today, and all the rabbis and all the shuls, it's just been just the fact that I could sit here, not like some samizdat, hoping that the KGB does not come in, or whatever group, whatever security service, and I can talk like this. There's never been anything like America. And we should not kid ourselves. It will not last forever. It never does. Too many American Jews think it will last forever. It will not last forever. Not because of the past year, but because it will not last forever when God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, decides the time has come to close the chapter, and the chapter is closing. That time will come. It has nothing to do with the current outbreak of the last month or two. I believe that's going to come to an end shortly after the war in Gaza comes to an end, and the war in Lebanon after that.
Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience as we conclude today?
I'm jealous of you. I'm not supposed to be jealous, but even though the 10 pronouncements, which King James wrongly translated into 10 commandments, is not 10 commandments. Torah is 613 commandments, but the 10 pronouncements, the Aseret Dibra, it says you're not supposed to be jealous. I'm jealous of you because you're in Israel, and you live in Israel, and if I hate to be a plagiarist, but I am in California. I'm in the utmost corner of the West, and my heart is in the East. Libi b'mizrach v'ani b'sof ha'marav. And because of my pulmonology situation, I'm stuck here. Jews belong in Israel. And in the closing remarks, Jews need to be strong. Don't rely on other people to protect you. Don't whine and complain about anti-Semitism. Fight, be strong, and don't worry what other people say. Bullies go ultimately after weak people that they can bully. They back off when they're dealing with strong people. After the 1948 war, there were 7 Arab countries attacking Israel. After that war, by 1967, it was down to 3, Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. After Israel, that war, Jordan gave up on war. After the Yom Kippur War, Egypt gave up on war. They all have proxies now, little terrorist groups, Hezbollah and Hamas in the south and the Fatah in the east. But by being strong, they backed off. Jews must be strong. And as strong as we must be, we must always understand that our ultimate strength comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God. If we are right by God, God will protect us. And that would be my closing comment.
Okay. Rabbi Fischer, thank you so much for your thoughts today. And you yourself should go from strength to strength, from chayil to chayil. And we appreciate this very much. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.